Hello, Small Town Police Department. My name is Caitlin Skorberg, and I am a data specialist, and I'm here to give you guys a presentation on how to implement big data into your town's policing department. So first off, I think it's important to go off of the basics of what is data, so you guys all have an understanding before we get into more of the bigger topics. So data at its finest is it is collected by researchers. It is raw, unprocessed data. So essentially, this is data that is just information, hasn't been organized. It's just as simple as can be. So as shown in the image of big data is everywhere. It's any information in any industry, in any system. It can be split into two different groups. So this is quantitative or qualitative. Quantitative is any numbers, while qualitative is more about characteristics and descriptions. So I figured my way of breaking down this presentation is to show you guys what has worked in the past, so you guys can base it off of success stories and know that what I'm telling you guys has actually worked for other cities. The first thing that has worked the best is pattern recognition. I'm sure many of you guys have heard about crime mapping. Essentially what this is algorithms are able to take in data of where crime has happened, around what time it happens, so that there can be additional and better surveillance to these areas. These areas are called heat areas, and is shown in this image down here. It is able to predict where potential crimes are going to happen based off the data that has been provided by these police departments. In addition to heat areas, there's heat lists, which are created in Chicago. Essentially what happens here is Chicago has created, the Chicago Police Department has created a list of certain characteristics or information that is most typically found in criminals in the area. And the exact list hasn't actually been released out of safety, but if you guys were to reach out to the CPD, I'm sure that they would provide you guys with information. So on this list could be anything about age, where they grew up, who was in the home when they grew up, what degree they have, what education they have, all of that sort of information. And then they were put into a list, and they were able to identify potential future criminals and essentially either keep watch of them, let them know, for their safety, or just to keep a better watch of certain areas that, these heat lists might be a little bit more prevalent in. Additionally, there are policies that have changed according to big data. So in New Orleans, they had the same data brought in by Chicago, but they actually went a different route. The route they took was public service. So in these social service programs, they either have better public parks for areas around where there's a lot of high crime. Additionally, they have classes for people who are becoming parents. They have places for kids to go, places for teenagers to go to. It's providing them with a resource to hopefully remove crime. So they didn't go necessarily they went to the source of the crime, not the people who are committing the crime, to try to regulate the amount of crime that's happening, and also just mitigate what is actually happening. Chicago went a different route with the data, so whereas they both got the data on these potential individuals that might be committing the crime or certain areas that this crime will be happening, Chicago took that data and decided to meet with individuals and their families who are on these lists to tell them that they're being watched, and for their safety if there's potentially going to be crime happening against them. So these meetings typically are not only just with the police department, but typically they also have a community member come with, and someone from the local church, usually a pastor, to meet with the individual if they are under 18, but if they're above 18, they meet with, or if they're below 18, they meet with the families as well. Otherwise, they just meet with the individual. So they took two different routes in trying to change the society and change the policies that are currently happening. The policies that have changed within police they're now able to assess risk in a different way. So in Netherlands, they have applications that they can use to determine who, information about people, if they're pulling them over, if they've given a name, they know anywhere within the European Union that they've been, what licenses they have, just essentially a lot of information about their past, their history. Changes in police policies, as well as removing the human bias. Big data is data is capable of doing that because it is solely based on information. So shown in the image below, it is just the information. There aren't any biases, any discrimination included into it. A third change that has happened within police is body cameras. This allows, for one, police accountability, but number two, it is also a way to collect data. Videotaping is a good way of identifying individuals, of identifying locations, identifying potential vehicles, all of that by videotaping. So as shown in the image on the top, that police officer is wearing a body camera. Technology that has been able to be incorporated because of big data are smartphones. The police in the Netherlands actually use a lot of smartphones, and these have those apps that I mentioned before that include all the information about individuals in the EU. Where this information is pulled from is also a new source of technology, which is data warehousing. So essentially the EU has a data warehouse where there's all these data sources that have been pulled that go into this warehouse. And in this warehouse is just mass amounts of data. And what they're able to do with that data is visualize it, report it, and give intelligence towards these police departments so that they can make changes, or just so they have the information about all the citizens within the EU. The second is algorithms through machine learning. So essentially a machine is given all this information, and then an algorithm is put into place so that they can report it. So similar with the data warehousing, all the data comes in, this computer or this machine is told through this algorithm what they're supposed to look for, and then they report out what exact information that the user is looking for. Another new use of technology, and similar with smartphones, is body cameras, and that was explained in the previous screen of police officers wearing them so that they can videotape their surroundings while on duty. So essentially the whole breakdown of the use of big data is open change for citizens. So this changing, as mentioned before, of whether it's in social services or meeting with potential criminals, those are big changes in police officers, for body cameras, and different policies. Both of those together bring about change within a society to hopefully bring union between citizens and officers and just everybody in general, so that it's just less crime and more harmony found within the society. So what is the plan of action given what has worked in the past? So I recommend implementing technology. As shown in the Netherlands police, smartphones have been really helpful for police. There is the ability to create apps that house all this information and can also report information in real time of what is going on. The second is the addition of body cameras. This is an incredible way to continue adding information in real time of what is going on with your police officers on duty, and also to help them be held accountable. It is a way to show that the data isn't discriminated against, because it's cold hard facts of what has happened. It's exact videotape of what's been happening. It hasn't been altered or doctored at all. So it's a way to show that this information in this big data is truly true. The third is creating those algorithms within these machines so that they can machine learn to create those crime maps, to create those lists of potential future criminals using the data that's provided. This can't be done solely with police officers. I know police officers do not go into school for computer science, for data analytics, for information technology, so they need to hire people for that. So I recommend hiring people who are successful in IT, data analysts, all of that, to create those algorithms, to create those apps, and to teach these police officers how to use smartphones, and if there's any issues along the way, IT can help support. Third is train police officers. So there's two different ways that police officers can see this use of technology. They can either be completely overwhelmed by it and need to be taught about it, or second, they could see that they have a smartphone every single day, that they know exactly what they're doing, but it's important to ensure that it is being taught. Law enforcement agencies have shared that their two top priorities for training or for their police departments is technology and training, and those go hand in hand. So it's important that those two things are considered. Now, an acronym that I like to teach all of my clients is ACT or ACT. Data is nothing if there is no action. You need to give purpose to that data so that there can actually be something brought about by it. So ACT stands for Applying Convincing Technology. So essentially this data that is pulled in, it might not all be relevant, it might not all be convincing towards change, but all that information and all that and those new technologies that are convincing, apply those. Use what you can, act with that data. Don't just let that data sit in a warehouse or have it look all pretty in presentation. Use it, apply it, and you'll see the changes brought about from your within your police department, within your small town. Implementation of these big data sources is incredibly important, but risks also need to be considered to ensure that there isn't a failure with this big data, that we can actually use it successfully. Number one is ethical. The NAACP found that data can produce racist results. So an example of this is, let's say that the data that's entered into these algorithms shows that police officers are regularly searching homes or going to homes that are painted the color purple. If that keeps happening, and if there's truly no reason to be going to these purple houses, but that there's a bias against these purple houses, it is going to create this algorithm saying that these purple houses are more likely or most likely to have crime happen. It is going to go onto those heat areas list for crime mapping and will show that these purple houses are where crime happens, even if that's not exactly true. So as shown in the top image, it's having this image or having these glasses that they're seeing that is not exactly true, that it's being doctored by these data points that are going in. These algorithms do not create new data. It's not able to remove that bias. So if we're sending in biased information, it's going to release biased information out. Secondly, the full training of police officers. This is really important to ensure that this data is not being overlearned. This data is not being seen as causation over correlation. That is not, we do not want that happening within the police department. So it is really important to ensure that these police officers are completely trained on all different types of data and with the new technology. These technologies are not like the typical iPhone or Android phone. It's new smartphones. These body cameras are not like using a Canon camera. It's completely different. So it's really important to ensure that these police officers are trained in the full extent with these new technologies and big data, so that they can use it safely and use it effectively for the town. Third, there are computer errors. That is exactly why there is an IT department. So it's important to ensure to keep it human. There might be certain data sets that come out that do not seem exactly correct. It could be that maybe data was entered incorrectly, or maybe again that there is bias within that data. So it is important to ensure that it's kept human. In the example of ethical, if it seems weird that it's suggesting that the purple houses are more likely to have crime happen at them, to be a crime location, then it's really important to look into the data and potentially try to mitigate the biases found within it. This is all done by keeping it human. Data is incredibly important. Data is done by a machine, but there also needs to be a human element to it to ensure that there are no biases in it, and just to ensure 100% that it's correct before it gets acted on. So, Small Town Police Department, I really hope that you enjoyed my presentation, that you will take my recommendations to heart, so that you can hopefully see a decrease in crime in your area and can use big data, use information, or use technology to your benefit. So thank you guys for listening, and I wish you guys the best.